What happens when your kid's horse world gets one level bigger than the one you have finally figured out? Before pony finals, I thought we knew horse shows. We had done the rated shows. We'd qualified for this national championship. We'd traveled across the state of Virginia. I even made an entire episode about what first timers need to know. And then we got to Kentucky and I realized, oh, this is very different. There were 97 ponies in Chloe's division. There were crowds watching. The rounds were live streamed. The scoring was different. And apparently, grooms are not just for bougie rich people. We bought more stuff despite already owning all the stuff I thought we needed. And I was reminded once again that in this sport, just when you think you know what you're doing, someone moves the goalposts. So whether your kid is headed to pony finals one day, you're moving from schooling shows to rated shows, or you just recently learned what a freaking lead change is, this episode is for you. Here are the things I thought I knew going into pony finals and what I now know to be true. Welcome to Broke Horse Moms, the podcast for non-horsey horse moms who are figuring out this wild world of equestrian life together as we go. I'm your host, Angie Trueblood, and I did not grow up in this world either. I'm just a mom who started Googling things like what is a lead change 5 years ago, and I've never looked back. Okay, friend, let's get into it. Broke Horse Moms is presented by Big D's Tack and Vet Supply. Nobody told me about Big D's, but I am glad I found them. They have a huge selection, fast shipping, and the kind of customer service Broke Horse Moms appreciate. Use code BHM10 for 10% off your order at bigdweb.com. That's BIGDweb.com. Well, hello, friend, and welcome back to Broke Horse Moms. I have missed you. I feel like it has been an eternity since we connected. You know how when you go on a really great vacation or you had your wedding and you went on the honeymoon, you end up coming home and live in sort of this kind of meh period for a minute? That's what I felt like when we came back from pony finals. It was such a high of a week that jumping back into real life felt like a bit of a slow burn. So the kiddo and the pony showed up in Kentucky. They ended up placing 13th out of 97, and they had 5 clear rounds. They made it to the jump off, and in that round, they just put it all on the line. I walked away feeling so proud of Chloe and Phoebe. And also, I learned so much during our week away, even though I went in following Laura's mantra from episode 24. We're not going to a third world country. We can procure anything we need same day. So I thought it would be fun to kind of share the myths that I went in believing and my perspective on those ideas now that we are on the other side of it. Before I dig in, I'm asking a really quick favor of you today. If you have been listening to the show for a hot minute and find yourself tuning in to almost every episode, would you please hop over to Apple or Spotify and leave a rating and review? It is super easy if you're listening on your phone. You just go to the main page for the Broke Horse Moms podcast. If you're on Apple, you scroll down, and when you see tap to rate, you can give a certain number of stars. 5 would be highly appreciated. And then you can write a quick 1-sentence review sharing what you love about the show. If you're on Spotify, you still go to the Broke Horse Moms main page, but there's 3 little dots at the top. If you click those, there'll be an option for rate the podcast, and you can do that right there. It helps give a little bit of social proof for folks who are just finding the podcast, and it gives me really great feedback to know what you love and maybe what you want more of. So if you could do that, I would be so appreciative of your support. Okay, let's dig in. So myth number 1, we have everything we need. Friends. So before we left, my mother-in-law, God, she's a blessing, ordered several items for us from Big D's, who is our show sponsor, and we have fallen in love with them. as a partner. She ordered a show pad holder, which is like a bag that you can put the saddle pads in and it protects them from like dust or getting dirty. She ordered a bridle holder or a bridle bag, which you would put the bridle in when you're not riding. You can zip it up and it's got hooks. She asked me if we needed a garment bag for Chloe to put her show clothes in, all of which I thought would be totally unnecessary. So, Roxanne, I know you're listening and I'm really sorry. We took the show pad bag, we packed that for sure. We ended up deciding we probably don't need this bridle bag. I had told her on the phone we don't need a garment bag. So we get there and we could have used all of those things. The saddle pad holder was total clutch because we kept the saddle pads in a tack stall that we paid for. And that's also where the hay and the feed was. So that was a lifesaver in keeping her super white saddle pads clean. The bridle holder would have been amazing because we could have hung the clean bridles in it overnight and she wouldn't have had to kind of touch up cleaning them the next day. And a garment bag would have been super helpful because we were finding places to put her show clothes that wouldn't get dirty. So we did not have everything we needed. We needed more hooks to hang some of these things in. We actually borrowed those from the family that ended up trailering Phoebe and went with us. Within an hour of being at our stall, we realized no one had a broom. So I bought a broom. And then I think it was that same day, I ended up buying ulcer guard just to help be protective of Phoebe's stomach from traveling so far. And then also hoof packing, which I did not know existed, but it's something you put on their hooves when there's a lot of walking on hot asphalt. So myth busted. We did not, in fact, have everything we needed. And yeah, that was really fun to discover, you know? But luckily, when you go to these shows, there's tack stores and little trailers everywhere. So you can just get everything you need. Myth number 2. It's just a bigger horse show. It's the same as what we've always done, but just bigger. And we have an episode coming up in a few weeks where I interviewed a friend of mine who is also a licensed clinical therapist. And she kind of alludes for when kiddos get nervous of reframing it as you're just doing the same thing that you've done at home, but in a bigger, not even in a bigger place, in a different place. And I agreed with that before we went to pony finals. But I will tell you, going to a show like this, a national championship, none of the rated shows that we went to rivaled the enormity of this show. Now, they helped Chloe and Phoebe prepare to where they got that experience on their rounds. But I will say the caliber of the riders that we competed against at pony finals, the number of riders that she competed against, having a real crowd and having the rounds videoed professionally, this was very different than anything we had experienced. So, you know, we say like she ranked 13th out of 97, which is absolutely true, but there is some level of enormity within that statement that I cannot express fully, like how big of a show this felt like. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, and I wasn't even the rider or the trainer. And what I saw come out of Chloe was this level of resilience in having to navigate, right? The emotion of the highs, and sometimes there were definitely lows, and needing to bounce back from those pretty quickly. The show itself was also scored totally different than any of the rated shows that we had experienced. It was basically every round kind of built on one another up until the final. So if you knocked a pole in the second round, that kind of eliminated you from making it to the final jump off, which decided the winner. So there was this insane level of accountability that you knew going into every round, it almost needed to be perfect. So that was a lot of pressure, I feel like. They handled it beautifully, and it actually plays to their strengths as a partnership. But man, it just felt different. Myth number 3. once you're there, it all will fall into place and make sense. And I will say this is what I have said about this horse world, especially coming into it without any prior knowledge. That is not the case. There, I still feel are real communication gaps for, and even people that know the sport. There were questions that we had, the most basic of which is, how is this even scored? How is a winner determined in the end round? I had to proactively ask questions in our group Facebook page and then seek out someone in person to show us how a winner is determined. So that part was really weird for me because I thought by the time we got there and started competing, it would be fully spelled out for us. And that was not, in fact, the case. So that was a myth. The next one, and this, gosh, please don't judge me. This is a myth or an idea that I have held internally for a long while. We've gone to rated shows. And so at those shows, you'll see a lot of the bigger barns have grooms, which are people that help groom the horse, get their bridle, get them tacked up. They'll bathe them after a show. They'll bring the horse to the ring, right? They are really the behind the scenes person getting the horse ready for the rider. And in my mind, I always thought grooms were for like bougie, rich people who didn't want to do the legwork of prepping their horse on their own, right? I had some stigma kind of attached to why they would use a groom. And that was totally busted over this week at Pony Finals. We took one of Chloe's best friends, thank you, Abby, and she was really going there to experience Pony Finals. And what she ended up doing was being an impromptu groom, helping tack up Phoebe, helping muck the stalls. They would go to the barn every morning for morning feed. And while Chloe would walk Phoebe and, kind of stretch her legs out, Abby would replace hay and fill waters. A show like this required someone to be tending to the horse and also the rider. And it just blew my mind that I had never really felt that being necessary before until we got here. I don't know if it was just the length of the time that we were there and how much we were paying attention to really tending to Phoebe and what she needed physically. But I would say a show like this, you need to go with the rider, obviously the trainer, but then have someone who is the point person for helping and supporting, and not someone that you really have to tell them what to do, someone that will just step in and get it done. It was amazing what she was able to do. And that really, I think, helped Chloe focus on what her job was. The next myth is quite hilarious. We were pinning this as a family vacation. Uh, it obviously was a very large expense. So this summer we didn't take like our typical beach vacation together. And we thought this would be our family vacation. My friend, that is pure insanity. There was very little exploring Kentucky. We didn't even go to the museums within the horse park because I felt like every day it was just taking care of the pony, taking care of Chloe. She would ride. Then we're all so hot and tired, you wanted to go relax for a little bit. There was just very little vacation vibe from this. We did slip away one morning and we went to Keeneland Racetrack, which was amazing. We were able to see some of the thoroughbreds get exercised on the track, and then we had a really great breakfast together. But we even missed the first timers photo at Pony Finals. It was a competition. It was fun. I loved it. I'm probably going to do it again, but it felt like a little bit of a job. Like you were going in, getting done what needed to happen, and then everyone kind of needed to reset. So noted, next year, if we're back at Pony Finals, we will also schedule a vacation. And I will say, I guess those are kind of the primary myths that I had going in that were totally destroyed by the end of the week. But there were so many unexpected delights that I don't think I was aware of going into it. The horse park, Kentucky Horse Park, is gorgeous. Kentucky itself, when we're in Lexington, Kentucky, was beautiful. Horse farms everywhere. The jumps were really beautiful. The ring where she got to jump in was large, and I know she loved jumping these very elaborate jumps that she had never really had exposure to before. The show itself was run like a machine. If you look at any of the video, you can see when one rider finishes a round, the next rider is already in the ring getting prepped to go. So it wasn't like shows to where the ring stands empty ever. It was just bam, bam, bam. This person's done, this next person goes. That was really amazing as sort of a efficiency freak. And then one thing Chloe said that I thought was fun, she said ponies are just more fun to watch because normally when we're at jumper shows, we see warm bloods and we see thoroughbreds, and they're either gray or brown or black. And we saw so many different types of ponies, different colors of ponies. It just made it really fun as a spectator because you didn't know who is walking in the ring next. It could be a spicy little pony. It could be a little bit of a bigger, kind of slow-moving pony. It was amazing. We loved it. So I guess to wrap up, where do I land on pony finals? Was it worth it? For us, 100%. Totally worth it. Aiming to go back next year, maybe even the year after when she can do a higher class. Standing ringside and watching Chloe and Phoebe make it to that very final round, it was worth every dollar. It was worth every early morning, every anxious thought that this mother had. But there was a piece of me coming back from it that I questioned, and even throughout the week, because we would see riders go into the ring and struggle from the get-go. There were folks who would go in on round one and they wouldn't even be able to get over the first jump. Either them or their pony just couldn't make it happen. And I, in my mind, and I'm saying this out loud, do not judge me, but I think you might be thinking the same thing. I wondered, would I feel the same way about pony finals or a show this large being worth it if this pair hadn't done well? If we had driven, all these hours to Kentucky and then they'd crashed and burned on the first round, first jump. Or if they didn't feel competitive, I guess, compared to the other riders. And I don't really know the answer to this. I would love to tell you kind of what this episode in a couple of weeks that we're putting out with my friend Courtney is. It's about the journey. It's not about winning or losing. It's a competition. I would be lying to you if I painted it all, roses and fairy tales or whatever that saying is. It's a competition. And I think that's where shows like this, ones that end up being an enormous sacrifice for everyone involved, they need to be intentionally decided and planned. And I think a piece of that is, are the rider and the pony ready for this level of competition? Now, if Chloe and Phoebe would have gone in on the first round and hit a rail, I know the rest of the competition still would have been great because they are ready. This was exposure for them that they felt very confident going into. Their trainer, Luann, felt very confident with them going into that. But I talked to a mom while I was there, and I think her kid has been riding for 2 years, and they ended up going to pony finals within the first year of her kiddo riding. And from what she shared, it was not a great experience for them. I think it was a struggle. And they were even struggling this week in the jumpers. And for that type of experience, I think I can say, I don't know if I would have felt that it was worth it. I feel like what made it worth it for us was that my kid, the pony, the trainer, everyone involved had prepared, and we had learned enough about the show to know, are they going into something and will feel competitive? And the answer to that was yes. And I'm just not sure that if I went into it blind to where I felt like it was a big stretch for them, I don't know if I would have felt like that because it was a sacrifice, both time and money and energy. So I don't really know how to wrap that idea up, but I do think it's worth saying out loud. I think we've all asked ourselves some version of it as we have navigated this horse world of, is this worth it? So I'm just going to let it sit there. Shoot me a message. You can email me, Angie@brokehorsemoms.com. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to know if I'm a total jerk for thinking that way. And I don't really know where my thought is on that completely, but I'm interested in having that conversation with you. So that's it. That's Pony Finals, myth busted, basically. If the episode was helpful for you, if you are finding these episodes useful, I would love for you to be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening so that you get the next episode automatically downloaded. And if you have a friend at your barn or somewhere else in this horse world that you think the podcast could help, could you just shoot them a message and let them know about it? That's really how we're growing, is word of mouth. And I appreciate all the help that you're giving me as we're doing that. That's it for this episode of Broke Horse Moms. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you'd like to follow along, you can join us over on Instagram at Broke Horse Moms and see some of our behind the scenes shenanigans. And if you know another mom who suddenly found herself learning the horse world alongside her kid, please send this episode her way. The more horse moms we have figuring this out together, the better. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, give your rider a hug, if they actually let you, and take a deep breath, Mama. You're doing great. Special thanks to our podcast editor and friend, Steve Woodward, who helps make sense of my rambling episodes and gives you the best audio experience possible. If you're thinking about starting a podcast and want his ears on your project, check him out at podcastingeditor.com.